talking about 10K, trying to chase the elusive 10K. That will change things on this channel. As of beginning this recording, we are sitting at 9,848. We are technically in striking distance. We could absolutely make 10K. We're going to open up the door to other people the whole night. I don't really have a end time in mind, so we're going to try to figure this out together. And yeah, we're just going to double check that we're streaming on our channel right now. And we'll kind of tell the story of how we got here. Now, one of the things we were doing before, and I want to know from you guys, is do you like this view? Is this view too trippy? Do you not like this view? Does this view seem okay? Let me know in the comments. I do want to know. So, hold on. If you guys don't like the angle, tell me. Well, hold your phone sideways. Everyone take your phone and go like that. Just flip your phone. I think, though, anyone who's watching it online might have an issue if you're on your computer. If you're on your computer, maybe even a tablet, I think it could be problematic. We'll see. We'll try this for a little bit. The idea is this might get people also to stop and kind of look at us, and maybe we can. Oh, since I'm typing on the phone. Well, yeah. Well, you can come on tonight if you want to talk. Hi, Kara. If you want to jump on, you can jump on this evening, and we can see. We're experimenting. We're just trying to figure stuff out like all the other cool kids. And for those who on YouTube are wondering what the hell we're talking about, we're on TikTok right now, also live, talking about our 10K run. And we're going to go into it. And I think Alice will be on with us in a second.
Hello.
What's going on?
I'm trying a Friday, heading into a long weekend for me. How about you?
My weekend doesn't actually look too busy, believe it or not.
For social media manager, so
not a bad thing. Just not a busy weekend for me. We have game night on Friday here in the community, but I really didn't have much going on tonight. We were so close to 10K. I was like, let me do this impromptu thing. For those who don't know, I did launch a FetLife page for the Kink Educator. I once had it, but I didn't have all the good reasons to do it, and it was pain in the ass to have two different profiles. But I feel like now I have found more of a reason to have such a thing going on, and because I have the reason, we're doing that now. And it sucks that I've got the reason, but I want to protect the people in my life. You know, being on here and trying to manage who you are personally and who you are as a content creator can come with its challenges. And I just want to make sure that we're doing the best we can with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can completely understand both the good and the bad of trying to have that secondary profile and managing it, but I think it'll be a good little bit of a buffer for you.
Well, it'll definitely be a good buffer for the people I care about, which is really what it comes down to. But I mean, in comics, I have to separate myself. You know, I can't be just who I want to be. I have to be Mr. Anderson, or I have to be Bobby Gregory with the Cat Dad book. And now I even have to do it in a kink space. It's crazy. It's like there are so many parts of me around this world. Sometimes I wonder who I'm supposed to be in a given moment. I've been at events where I'm like, am I supposed to be the Kink Educator right now? I don't honestly remember. Who was I supposed to show up as tonight? The comic book advocate, the Kink Educator, but it is what it is. So We're going to invite you all on to be part of the show tonight. If anyone wants to jump on and say hi. Hey, Sage, what's going on? You're more than welcome to tell us how the move is going. We're going to be on for a little while trying to drum up followers. It's the name of the game today. How many followers can we get by being live? So let's talk about things. And Sage is on. What's going on, Sage? How's the move?
Hey, everything is great actually now. For the first time in what feels like about 2 months, I've been able to say I'm having a wonderful time. Everything with the move is complete. We're completely unpacked. Everything with insurance has been finalized. I actually just got the check today, so that's great. Everything's finalized with the new car. Just finished my first full week at my new job. Life is amazing.
Good. I'm glad to hear it's good. Now, with your job, are you heading into a place where you're going to have the summer off, or are you straight ahead now?
I'm still going to be working year-round because it's still not in tandem with the public school systems. It's private.
Okay.
Which is good for me because I would hate to have, like, if that was the case and I just started working here, that would mean I would only have, like, 2 weeks worth of time that I'd be working. Because the public school systems out here are currently on their last week of school for the year. But luckily it's year-round. It's more pay. It's the position I actually wanted to be working in the first place. It's great.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that.
The only bummy thing about where we're living right now is I've done my research and there's not anything within the area that gets us closely connected with the King community. There's nothing. It's not like another. I have to go 2 hours south to get anywhere close to anything public, like a club or anything like that, which is unfortunate. But it is what it is. I mean, I wasn't really active in the club scene as it was, so it doesn't really matter to me too much. But it's a touch isolating, I guess.
Well, I mean, you could always create. I mean, maybe not an actual venue yet, but you never know. I mean, I came out here and decided to kick tires and start something out of nothing.
I mean, to me, that's a lot of spaces. It's really, there's nothing until somebody comes along willing to start something.
That's true, actually. Sometimes it just takes a person saying, hey, you know what would be great here? A munch.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad things are going good for you.
Yeah, I'm glad everything worked out as well as it did. Anybody who's been on the show consistently for the last few weeks, if you are aware, it's been insane. But we're good now. Life is great. Life is good. Tired, but life is good.
Well, that's good. So we are celebrating the last few years of doing this. Do you remember, either one of you, do you remember the first time you came across this channel and what grabbed your attention?
Oh, I do. Very much so.
What you got?
So I remember it was October, I believe. I think it was a couple weeks before Halloween. I was just scrolling through lives, doom scrolling through lives, trying to find something, anything, because I was bored out of my mind. And I came across this channel, and I remember the topic that was being spoken about was talking about how politics and kink tend to go hand in hand, and how the current political climate in the United States is going to affect the kink community. And you had asked if anyone in the chat had anything to share about like their thoughts and feelings behind the subject. And I got in the chat and said, I have a lot to say. It's a lot to type. Would there be any way that I could join the live as a guest? And I remember you being kind of hesitant about it at first, because I think, if I'm correct, that was like one of the first times you had ever had somebody come on the live as a guest.
Yeah, at that point, we really hadn't done live. They recently changed the rule, but at the time, I would be held accountable for the live guests.
Yes.
Now they give me a warning. Your guest is saying inappropriate things. Kick them off, not to be penalized.
But I remember getting on live, and we spoke for like of like how kink and politics go hand in hand, how the election was possibly going to affect the kink community. We talked a lot about how the LGBTQ plus community and the kink community have been sister communities for decades, and how when the LGBTQ plus community is affected, we are inherently affected. And I remember it being one of the first instances where I felt like I could have an actual conversation about kink that felt genuine and that didn't feel like pickup play at the time, or that didn't feel like somebody trying to, clock whether or not it was someone they could play with. It was just a conversation. And honestly, that exact energy is what's kept me coming back to the channel and being on the live and speaking as a guest.
I do understand the energy of what you're saying. So many people talk to each other as in I'm gonna play with you or fuck you way, instead of human to human, and just talk about the things that we're doing. And I blame that on a lot of event organizers not keeping it chill. I think if you bring it down, it's better.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't remember exactly the first video I came across, but you actually popped up in my algorithm. And I'll be honest, I can't remember if it was a live or probably more likely one of your posted videos. And I do think it was probably around predators in the community and how that's handled, because you were kind of going through that a lot at that moment in time, because it was shortly after the news broke about Orlando, right? And so from there, I went through your page, watched a bunch more of your videos, gave you a follow, and started commenting quite a bit. And we were kind of having this conversation via comment and reply, and then eventually started getting on lives and then joined me for some of them, and it just kind of went from there.
Yeah, I'm one of the...
I think what drew me to it was also the fact that we're talking about, while we're keeping it to education, we're talking about some of the real problems in the community space. Right? And there's a lot of educators out there, and we need them, but there's not a ton of educators leading the space to have open discussions about the problems and trying to find and have that open discussion and find ways that could possibly improve it or change it. Right? And it's encompassed everything from explaining red flag behavior to trying to teach and encourage people how to be safe for themselves and demand safety of others they play with. And we need more of that.
This is very, very true. And I cannot wait for the new people who find this channel and finally, because one of the biggest compliments I've gotten in Amazon chick says that our generation has not learned how to talk as adults. It's very true. There are no adult conversations really happening in the kink space. You have people out there who are like BDSM and they're giggling and they're laughing. And I never understand that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a good conversation and having a natural laugh, but they don't take this serious. I take this very serious. I'm not doing this just for like the TikTok 2 years. I remember when TikTok first came to America, I tried doing kink content. I remember everyone telling me like you could be a kink educator. And at the time I was burnt out. I had just gotten off doing the comic book advocate. I was so tired of being on social media, so tired of talking, but everyone's like, well, you have a really good voice. You should do it. And I remember when I first started TikTok, we had, 15-second videos? I think it was a 1 minute or a 2 minute video and like a 3 or a 5 minute video. And it was hard. It was harder back then to do certain conversations on these. And I didn't have live back then. I'm not even sure when live became a thing, but we didn't get live for a long time on the channel. And I ran into other creators who were gatekeeping and what we're going to decide what what's allowed on TikTok. I was like, no, you're not. TikTok will decide it. You can say whatever the hell you want. TikTok will come in here and shut us down any day they want to. I was like, you playing games is what's causing problems. Sure enough, now, do you know the algorithm's looking for all the other things that people say? And the reason this channel doesn't get into more trouble than it's already getting into is because we don't hide our content behind stupid words or try to be like BD, and I don't even want to finish it because it'll get us in trouble. We just say what it is. We have the adult conversation. And by having the adult conversation, when I'm going into all of these disputes and appeals, we win them so often because we're not hiding anything. We're not talking about sex therapy, though there are sex therapists on this app, so go figure that out. But we've taken ourselves seriously, and I don't think you see that much in the community or social media for that matter. I know people in the lifestyle do, but I think that it's been an interesting marriage of the two. I'm one part of me is like, I can't believe we're getting to 10K. Another part of me is like, this took fucking forever. You know what I mean? I've built other channels faster.
Well, and I feel like what you're saying, it boils down to this, like, there's just this culture of lack of taking accountability, right? Like, yeah, I said the adult word. I also said I'm an 18 plus channel. I'm only supposed to have adults here, right? And, you know, everybody wants to push off that, oh, we need to enforce rules because nobody can be held accountable. Nobody's willing to take accountability for their actions. And I feel like that comes across in so many places.
I agree.
In kink space, on social media, in other adult realms of existence, where people want to dictate what's allowed and what's not allowed instead of just leaving it up to self-accountability.
Well, I mean, if you read the terms and services, they're pretty clear about what they're allowed. They actually talk about BDSM in their terms of service, which is new. Most places kind of hint around and the moral versus the ethical clauses they do. By the way, for those curious, a moral clause is based on an personal idealism, and that's why that's the most dangerous clause, as you can see, as opposed to someone who's doing ethics. Ethics are more universal. Like, in other words, this content shouldn't be spread to people under 18, and I completely agree, and that's why we make sure that we are an adult-only channel. And that hurt us. I would have already had 10,000 if we had left ourselves open. But the minute we could be an 18 plus channel, we became an 18 plus channel. I think, Sage, you were on with me when we changed it for the first night because we had been doing 18 only on the lives, but we couldn't do it with the content. I remember you were one of my guests that night.
I remember. So I think that night in particular, because we were on, I remember us as a channel being very on the fence about what to do in this situation. We were afraid of limiting ourselves and limiting our reach to people. Because what happens when you become an 18 plus channel is, unfortunately, because of how TikTok tends to do things, you often aren't seen even by people who are 18 plus, because they heavily restrict who can and can't see 18 plus channels. And you lose a lot of your reach through doing that. We were very on the fence about it a little bit. And if I'm correct, the instance that made us finally decide to do it was when those two individuals joined the live and I about crashed out on live on the internet. But we had two individuals who decided to join the live, treated like a joke. And Rob learned that day that Sage doesn't, deal with anybody for anything. And it was a very upsetting situation. But from that, we decided to become an 18 plus channel after that point. And we did. It hit our reach very hard. We went from lives where we might have 15, 20 people to getting lucky if there were 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
If even that. And I've seen the channel gain more of a reach over the last several months. But it's taken time because we kind of had to build back up from where we were before. But on an ethics level, being an 18 plus channel was the best thing for us to do. because it reinstates to the vanilla people who choose to get all up in arms and talk about this can't be on the internet because what about the children? The children shouldn't be watching this kind of content in the first place.
Yep.
That's the point. Like, it's not. Then with what Wondering Alice had said about accountability is if we don't want. And sorry, forget the cat. She's all up in my face again. If we want to prevent individuals who are under the age of 18 from seeing this content, we as the adults in this space need to take accountability about not giving them access to that kind of content. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be allowed to exist and talk about it. It means that other adults within those under 18-year-old individuals' lives need to go, I need to do more to protect them and keep them away from this, not, rain on somebody else's paper mache.
And by the way, for those watching, is this view too distracting right now? I kind of dig it, but I see how it is on a laptop, and it can be a little annoying on a laptop. So if you guys don't like the angle, we can switch it back. But I thought changing the angle tonight might get more people to kind of stop and hang out with us because we're different.
So we're sideways today, okay?
Yeah, I was testing to see if the whole point of that was honestly, am I going to get in trouble for this? Will TikTok get mad at me because I'm filming sideways? Because I didn't know if they had a bot. Because I've seen they put out a lot of movie trailers recently that allow it to go sideways. And there used to be a time in TikTok, I've been on TikTok for a while, if you posted YouTube videos, they used to get pissed at you. And they would know it was YouTube because people would do it sideways. I think things are changing now. And I think TikTok might have a sideways option coming in the near future.
I kind of hope they do because a lot of times I will join the lives from my tablet and it would be so much nicer to have it in sideways mode.
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely.
So as we're going to hit on this TikTok channel 10K, we're also looking to go backwards, back to BDSM 001, 101, and restart. And one of the biggest reasons for the record we're restarting would be simply because restarting would allow us to kind of set up these playlists that would make things so much easier. We have 2,000 videos now. Now, obviously, my comments to you guys who are participating would not fall under such things, because I wouldn't put them in playlists. I love interacting with you all, but I don't think we need a playlist for the questions I'm answering, I should say. So we'll see. We're always looking at new things and new ways to how to do things. We're always listening to your feedback. But for you both, what do you think? Like for me, I think we need a 001 class. What do you need to know before you don't know anything kind of class, What are topics you guys think that we should be looking to do in the near future?
I think that one of the first, if we're going to start from the ground up and go back to BDSM 101, I think what we need in that moment is to start with consent and discussing what consent is. What does that look like within the kink community? How do you ensure affirmative consent? Well, not ensure, but how do you verify affirmative consent is a better word for that. And what do you do if you feel your consent's been violated? I think that really is a good topic to start with because it is the groundwork of this practice and the groundwork of this lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I piggyback now from what you're saying, Sage. I think you have to start with consent, but overall, there's a whole little cluster of literally stop, before you go, start here. And the first one is that it is consent. It is communication. It is addressing that, kink shaming isn't okay. It may not be your cup of tea, but you don't get to tell somebody else it's gross. So it's just, here's what you need to know when interacting with kinky people. Sorry, my dog.
That's definitely, we're doing our best to kind of reinvent the wheel sometimes here, and it's a wonderful thing to be part of, you know. But like, no one's done education, as far as I can tell, the way that we're doing it here, and it feels different because it is different, and I'm a big fan of that being true. You know what I mean?
Well, and to some extent, as I'm sitting here thinking, you almost need to go to definitions. You could go all the way back to defining certain words before you even start getting into the details of consent and stuff, because, or right shortly after, because like one term that we have given hot amongst ourselves all the time that gets thrown around is the idea of edge play. Well, that can mean about three different things, right? Near the edge of somebody's limits. Edge is in, at some point, serious injury or fatality is now on the table as a possible outcome of doing this activity. Or edge is in the edge of something, possibly metallic, right? And even that, there's so many ways we use words and kink that to a newbie, a green kinkster, are going to confuse them.
No, I would have to agree. I feel like taking the time to define certain terms, or at least provide a basic definition for certain terms, would be deeply beneficial for anybody who's new to the community.
Yeah, I think the definitions can be an interesting. Uh, I think the bigger problem with definitions, and not that we won't do it, we'll of course do it. We did it the first time and did the cascading thing, but anytime one video gets a problem, it screws it all up. The bigger problem with definitions is just the time it'll take. You know, like there's so many words to define. I almost feel like we should define as we go. Have that playlist open and just throw a word like CNC got brought up today. Let's define CNC and then talk about it, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to handle it. You could initially start with a cluster of some pretty common ones. Like the difference between just consent and informed consent. That kind of ties in nicely to both the defining and kind of the one-on-one people need to understand. Because it's not just somebody saying, yeah, it's somebody knowing all the outcomes that could happen and still saying, yeah, I'm good with that. And then, yeah, you just keep it rolling because there will always be new terms that come up that need to be addressed.
Yeah, and we can go back and we can almost add, like this is how this word has evolved, evolution of words as we're doing this, because it's going to happen.
I think especially if you take advantage of the playlist feature and you just have one that's, the playlist definitions, you can just constantly be adding new videos to that playlist.
It's true. And definitely something we want to go with, because I mean the playlist is just a game changer, because right now there are so many videos. I don't even think the feature that allows for looking at things works, and we couldn't use hashtags because a lot of the hashtags become kick me signs because of how other people have abused something. Very frustrating.
Very true. Well, and I always wondered, I have no idea how to do this to videos, but one of the things I love when people do with their playlist videos is when they put that caption on them that tells you what it's about. So as you're looking at the list, the full playlist, you can see, here's the one defining, term A, but you're looking for term Z and you can scroll till you find it. But I also wonder if those kind of become kick me signs too.
I think our playlists will be fine, to be honest. I don't think we have to worry about that at this point. I wouldn't perceive us worrying about it. You know what I mean? because I also think FetLife's getting, TikTok is getting smarter, knowing that some of the people on here are actually serious about this, and we do draw an audience. So I think we'll be. It's just how you do the definition, right? It's always about if you do it respectfully and straightforward. I find TikTok leaves us alone. The earlier abuse that we had from a lot of people early on really made this profile very bulletproof in the end, because we have proven they had to pay attention to us and they had to see what we're doing. And I think that really helped us, despite what they would have wanted. It kind of backfired on them, because when you have someone putting you under a microscope all the time and they keep looking and going, no, they're following the rules, it does make you kind of like, oh, we're just going to leave this person alone. I don't know what these other people's problems are, but we're not going to deal with them, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where, like, there's other people doing education content on here, and nothing against them and the content they're doing, but a lot of times they will use models and drawings and diagrams to explain themselves, which we do need. We need that in the world. We need more of that in the world. But a lot of times with the kind of content we're talking about, because it's not so kink activity focused, I feel like that's also part of our benefit is we explain things with words, and as long as we're not using certain words, we're within the terms of service. You can't get in trouble for using words.
It's the tightrope, right? Just use it the way it's intended. You should be fine. That's the hope. So all we can do is put out the best we can within the guidelines, and they are getting better now. I will give TikTok credit where credit is due. They are now more reachable. They are more accountable to themselves, I suppose would be the word that we're looking for. So we are seeing them understand and evolve. That was one of the biggest things that I watched this thing about Twitter the other day, and it kind of fascinated me, to be honest with you, how it really did kind of change so much, and they weren't ready for the changes, like the whole issue with bullying, and all of these social medias. And can you read some of the comments? I know Sage had said something, she had to go. I'm sorry about that, Sage. I hope everything's okay.
Yeah, I can give them a look. So
you gotta go sideways.
Yeah, well, I'm on my phone, so I flipped it back up.
Okay.
Yeah, so last one I think you shared was image on Amazon chick. Our generation has not learned how to quote talk as adults, which fully agree. Amazon chick also said the layout is fine. It's the content that matters. I fully agree. But being honest, half the time I don't look. I'm just talking and looking at something else.
Which to me is a huge win. That means that we're giving out real information. So if you could learn from just listening, I'm doing something right.
Well, and for my neurodivergent brain, it works really well as a body doubling tool.
A couple people have said that to me.
Yeah, because since the content is what you say and not what you're doing, it's very easy for me to, put my headphones in and kind of throw the phone in my pocket and listen or join you in a conversation while just going about mundane tasks in my house, which is one of the best things for me. I actually grab onto content better when I'm able to be moving my body while learning.
I could see that. I that's how I do my books. But sometimes I just need to be, like I want to be in the moment, and I just can't focus. But like sometimes videos do help. Sometimes a little bit of the closed captioning helps a lot.
Yeah. I can also get that energy too, and needing the closed captions to focus almost sometimes. Okay, so magician goddess, I don't mind it. I'm assuming that means the layout. Amazon chick, I know enough to know I don't know enough. Then a couple just yes to what we were saying in the moment, which I'm not sure what we were saying at those moments. And then Amazon chick was saying again, I love watching these lives. You all teach me so much as a newbie. And then we're back at Sage saying she had to head out.
Well, we'll see Sage again. That's the good news. So.
True. Well, and I guess I'll send Amazon chick a question. Is there a topic, or is there a topic that we've talked about that you felt was the most eye-opening for you, or a topic we have not talked about yet that you'd really like to hear on?
By the way, we are live on YouTube as well. We're just not getting any comments from there. But we are on our Kink Educator channel. Apparently, we can now go live on the YouTube. We've gotten whatever we've done, we've now earned it. And we have one person watching. Thank you for watching. So, and again, if this camera angle is annoying to you guys watching, let us know. But you know, we're in it. We're in this together. So, did Amazon chick get back to us?
No comment reply to my question. I wonder if they had to dip out or just are. Looks like they might still be on here. They just maybe can't respond at the moment. Oh, hold on. They finally did. I'm just a sponge at this point, so new that I don't know what to ask. I'm exposing to you guys, and I think it cut off the rest of their comment.
Oh, I'm sorry that it cut off the rest of their comment. But that I get that. I fully get that.
Exposed to you guys and boyfriend. I think they mean their main exposure for education is their partner and us, which we are happy to be here and supporting you, but I know Rob and me are both on the same page of this. Try and find as many educators as you can kind of consume, so to speak. Whether it's on YouTube or other educators on here, there are some good other educators on TikTok, but especially as a newbie, try to stick to the ones that are giving you more general awareness, not giving you specific instructions on how to. Like how to do specific activities, because not all activities really are safe to be learned from TikTok. But part of the reason for that is the best way to get a well-rounded education in anything is to learn from a lot of different people. And through that, you'll find the bits of truth and stuff that everyone's kind of saying, and it'll help you get better at spotting when somebody's saying stuff that's just baloney.
Mm-hmm. Very, very true. But you know, is Miss T here? I saw Miss T's name.
I haven't seen her say hi.
Well,
she's getting her comments blocked again.
She said she was going to be busy today. So that's why I was like, did she stop in real quick? Because I did invite her, because she's been part of this legacy. You know, I'm glad both you and Sage got to show up today. I just kind of put this all together last minute because we suddenly got a burst of 200 followers this week out of, like, you know, it's been like a desert to try to get followers in the last few weeks. And then just suddenly we had the explosion. That's usually how it happens.
I'm listening, but I'm going to mute for a minute. I just have to let my dog outside to the bathroom for a couple minutes, and I'll be able to join talking again.
Sounds good. Yeah, so it's been a wild ride. I'm so glad that we have had the opportunity to all meet each other here and kind of learn from each other. I think that's super important that we do learn from each other. So we're just gonna have to keep it on. with the education, and you guys feeding me the information you need is so important. I can't stress to you how much I rely on all of you to kind of keep me going, like tell me what I'm missing. So just looking to see if you guys got any other questions. In my TikTok studio, just looking, my vetting process is hard. Vetting should be hard. You don't want to pick the wrong people. Just joined FetLife. Well, welcome to it. FetLife is good for events. I don't know about the rest. Depends on your area and the people that you surround yourself with, like a lot of other things in life. So.
All right, I'm back. No, I completely agree. It's one of those places that can be wonderful. It can be terrible.
Yeah, it really depends.
Some of it is, it's a mixture of you get out what you put in, as well as who you are around, who you let be a part of your virtual
Bubble.
life there, so to speak.
Your FetLife bubble.
Quite literally.
Yeah, FetLife's been an interesting thing. It was one of the things we talked about. Now you can do multiple pictures. They're starting to get to the actual things people wanted, which is nice for a minute. Because for a while there, it was feeling weird how they were doing certain things.
Yeah, it seemed like they were pushing, for a while, they were just pushing out updates nobody asked for and nobody really wanted.
Oh, I think there were people. No, I think there were people asking for some of those things. Some of those things were because people are now getting smart. We know. Check the activity feed. Notice that has not gone well for most people. Teaching people to look at people's activity feed, because you can't do any. You can't go back. You'd have to go back and delete all your comments. And some of them, I don't even think you can delete.
You might as well nuke the profile. And we've also taught people, well, a nuke profile is not inherently a red flag. It can be a yellow one.
Yeah.
So take some time to see whether that yellow flag turns green or turns red.
Exactly. So, future, what do you see our Kink Educator channel? What do you think should be like? I know it's language and the 101, but like, what other 101 things? Because I was trying to rack my brain. It's so hard for me to even think about being new at this point, 30 years later.
So I think for newer people, because I'm going to go with this, like we're talking to the new folks again. Like we're really targeting the new folks, the people just finding it. So you've got terms, we've got the true basic 101s. What about what to look for when finding in like IRL spaces? What kind of things should you look for? Kind of the red flags, green flags of events and social groups.
It's an interesting one. But I think that's almost, I mean, we'll do it, but I think we're going to have a little bit of a regional problem with that one as well.
Possibly, but I think there are some basic ones. Like if you're going in and the music is so loud that you can't hear the person standing next to you, they do not have safety in mind. Keep that in mind, you know?
Very, very true.
There are some regional things, but there also are a lot of things that are universal.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely true. And that's why I was bringing up the whole morals versus ethics. So I kind of, because we do have ethics and there are morals, and morals are personalized. Morals is really what gets in the way of a lot of us doing the strictly right thing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because
so the ethic is stealing is bad. comes into it, well, when somebody is stealing a loaf of bread because they literally have no food, is that still bad? Or does your moral outweigh your ethic?
And for a lot of people, there's a huge difference between the two, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you're playing the whole whose ethics are we playing by game, and things get a little complicated, you know?
And they definitely do, because, well, ethics are typically universal. They actually aren't always, right? And when you think about it, even in kink, I feel like the only actual ethic, there's really only two ethics that are really universal, and you have to boil them down so far: consent and safety. You can't even say a specific type of consent, like informed, because not everybody agrees that informed consent is the universal ethic.
Mm-hmm.
And you may find pockets of people where consent is even debatable.
Which I would run from those pockets.
Oh, definitely. But a lot of people have been able to talk a nice conversation around enthusiastic consent as opposed to informed. And at face value, enthusiastic sounds great. Me and you, we've had this combo so many times, either in comments on posts or in the live. And I think that's a lot of the problem, is a lot of people will sell ethics that at face value sound great. But as soon as you really start digging into them and start really holding them up for review, you quickly see it's written on tissue paper and it falls apart.
Yeah. Agreed on that. I think a lot of people too they are like taking it serious. I won't take anything away from them. They're taking the ethics and the morals, and they're really thinking about it, and they're getting involved in it. But I don't think it's always the best thing for certain people to be asking certain questions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that, like, we had that one person who very nicely, we're not going to name them, but very nicely, is whatever one word or two words?
When I'm using it in the like, okay, whatever, I always spell it out as one word.
I have to look at this now.
Maybe that's the 90s kid in me. I don't know.
I guess it is one word. Okay. I'm lettering tonight because we're going to be on for a little while, so I figured I'd do that. Red Flag Toys can come join us and tell us about their first experience with the channel as well. Lettering is such a pain in the butt. But I mean, she was on here and she admitted that it was a guy saying, and it pissed her off.
What was it? Seeing what?
Me talking.
A little bit in the middle there.
I'm sorry. I was talking about how she got upset about the person we were on that night. We were on together, and she was like, really hard. No, it has to be enthusiastic. It has to be enthusiastic. And I think I shared this with you. If I didn't, I'm sorry. She wound up writing me a very nice letter saying, I was triggered by you being a man, saying we didn't need enthusiastic consent, because it's always been, like in general, consent hasn't been dealt with nicely,
Yeah. Well, but now I know exactly what time you're talking about. And even that, this is not 101. This would be later on. But you could even do a small discussion, one of the Wednesday discussions or something, addressing stereotypes and stigmas in kink, because they do exist. And they exist based on gender, they exist based on role. And if in 2025 people don't understand why stereotypes and stigmas are bad and can be problematic, I'm not going to explain it to them. But, that's a big conversation conversation a lot of people don't want to have. There's always the very basic stigma that most dominants are male identifying and most submissives are female identifying. A lot of people, especially in more cis-het community bubbles, tend to just automatically default to that assumption. And it's so problematic. Because as you, with your years of experience across various communities have, and I have in mind, which is a very gender spectrum kind of community, realize a lot of people don't play to those strict lines or those strict stereotypes in their dynamics, in their play, in who they are.
Yeah, absolutely true. I think that some people just see me and it's easier to make me a bad guy because, let's be honest, the last couple years, I became middle-aged. I'm white. There are things I can't change about myself that people are taught I might be the bad guy. And that's something that, it's not something we're going to debate tonight, but it's something I certainly have to be aware of. It is something I'm always going to have to be like, I can't take this the wrong way. I've got to just let it play out and see what it is. Because I got the feeling from her immediately that was the issue. But if I had started the conversation that way, we would have never gotten to a good place. And we did, in the end, get to a good place because I ignored it and just took on the conversation as it should have been taken on. And we got to a mutual place. And I think she learned. And that means that they took what they learned here and they went back and they said they were going to teach their community and have a bigger conversation about it now that they got it. Because they realized how the enthusiastic could be used against people, which is the point I was making from the beginning. So we got to a good place. I was kind of happy about that interaction. We don't get to interactions like that by, I believe, reacting too quickly in the beginning,
Oh, yeah. No, that's exactly it. You have to take a moment, take your breaths, and then address the conversation at the face value, so to speak, as opposed to the emotional side.
Yeah. So we got lucky on that one. There's always going to be people, and then you see the people who like terrify you, like the recent Zach kid. I don't know if you watched any more follow-up videos since the one where I kind of called him out. He got worse. He's talking about women being insane now and how people in his comments need to chill. He's just telling about all of his experience he's had with all these women. It's getting really bad.
I haven't seen anything else, but yeah, you can't try and position yourself as an authority of the subject in general and then use I'm only talking about my experience as your defense.
With the women I know.
That works.
Well, I know these women. I was like, oh boy. If that happened to me, I'd be crucified. But okay, you do you, boo. And there are people in his comments still being like, oh, sweetie, don't stop. You've been so helpful. He's not talking about kink. He's book talking it. He's trying to be one of those relationship gurus. And someone that I know who I respect, we had a different take on them and we were talking about back and forth. And then she just unfortunately had to watch him continue to make these cringier videos. And she's like, I don't understand what the fuck happened to this kid. Like, this kid was not like this like a little while ago, you know?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's probably your pattern recognition catching it. Between all your life experience and kink experience, the two coming together, your background as a manager, you're just recognizing the pattern and seeing the train wreck approach before it actually hits.
Yes.
And other people can't believe the train wreck is coming until they actually see the fires and smoke of the train wreck.
And some people, it's also what they're getting from it. There's a lot of people who are probably feeling good about, he's being so nice. Oh, he sounds great. And sometimes, that's why you get these religious nuts with all these followers who like their followers later unfollow them and they just said like, I knew it was bullshit, but it sounded like good bullshit. And at that moment I needed good bullshit.
At that moment, I needed the good bullshit.
It's
Maybe you should trademark that statement.
But it's the truth. A lot of times when these people will follow certain other people, because I've had other people come back to me on this journey of 2 years. I had a big problem in the very beginning of this channel, and it was a little bit about the shorter format videos. I was glad when we got extended videos, but some of these people were just ridiculous. They were deciding, and they were part of like a kink university, which, by the way, was ran by consent violators. I could have, and I told everyone, I'm like, these people are dangerous. These right here, these people, and every single one of them has had a story come out almost 2 years later. There are very few of them that haven't been touched by a lot of bad things that like you said, you see it. After 30 years, I don't need to see it play out. I see it on day one. I'm like, oh, this person's going to be this, this, and that. But you could warn people. You can pull them aside. I've given some of them my books for free. They don't read them. They think everything's going to be okay. They're good. They don't need anything from me. And 6 months to a year later, they're crying in my arms. And it's not an I told you so moment at all when someone gets hurt. You know, you just get frustrated. Like, how, you know?
It's this mix of internal frustration and anger. Because I've been there too. I've done the warning, you know. I think once you've spent enough time in community spaces that have some sort of ebb and flow of newbies coming in, you learn how to spot newbies coming in frenzy. And being in frenzy itself is not inherently a bad thing. But unfortunately, what frenzy can cause one to do is make some bad decisions. And I have found that if somebody who has gotten to the point that can clock frenzy pretty decently, you know, I've been in kink for any math, almost 13, 14 years now. I can kind of clock when somebody's coming in with a bit of that frenzied energy, and you try and warn them. And if something happens which you never hope for, when they come and tell you, it's this weird mix of this internal frustration and like anger, not at them, kind of at the situation, and also kind of a like, what other way could I have said things to have maybe made them hear me? But it happens so frequently, it's awful.
Yeah.
That people in frenzy get taken advantage of. That happens so frequently. It's just disgusting.
For me, it's like also like a little bit of depression. Like I failed this person. Like I didn't get through to them. And, you know, I've had people tell me, look, I need to burn my hand on the stove. Like you were there, you were yelling, you were saying, don't touch the stove. But until I touched the stove, I didn't learn. And sometimes it's true. Like, especially some people, you see someone, you think they're no, not this person, right? They're so nice to me. Maybe they just had a bad experience, because we also know some exes can be fucking crazy, right? Like you can't always go by the word of an ex. Like your ex is for a reason sometimes. Sometimes shit ends nice and good. That's not the story for most occasions. Most relationships sadly end because someone felt away, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that's where I always advise people, even if they tell you not to. So here's the thing: if you're vetting someone and you ask to talk to previous play partners of theirs, and they are not okay with you reaching out to a single one of their past play partners, typically the problem is the common denominator in that situation and not all the separate individuals. Not always. So this is where, you know, half dozen one way, half dozen the other. But even in a vanilla space, if I am in a situation where I'm looking to date someone and they basically say that all of their exes are crazy in a very like kind of offhand way, that is actually a yellow flag for me, if not a very orangey looking yellow. Because the chances of say 10 people they dated all being crazy tells you one of two things: either they were actually the problem,
Well,
At that point, I might be putting myself in the bucket, but they have a terrible taste of picking partners that would actually be compatible for them.
but you also have to understand that sometimes that's trauma induced. Like I can tell you now, years later, having the abusive relationship I had with my mother really kind of screwed up how I interacted with partners beyond that. Growing up in a family that yelled, it made me feel yelling was important. You know?
That right there is why I didn't say it's a red. So I said sometimes it's an orangey yellow, but it's a yellow because you're exactly right. If all somebody's ever known up to that point in their life is chaotic interpersonal relationships, and I use that to mean both romantic and like parental or sibling, okay? If all they've ever known is chaotic and toxic versions of that, unfortunately what's going to feel comfortable to them are chaotic and toxic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not their fault, and maybe they can grow through that, but you also need to decide for yourself, is that something you're okay with taking on as well, is the fact that this person needs to go through a path or a period of healing and growth and self-understanding. And it can be immensely rewarding to be that person helping them through it, but it could also be immensely damaging.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to have the self-awareness of, are you ready or willing or able to do that?
Hey, how do they spell brutta in? Because this guy's got me. Uh-oh.
In like dialect?
No, because I'm editing a book that I worked on, and this is one of those books I don't actually own. I'm not the creator. I'm not the head guy. I'm not the grand poobah of the book. So, and I love him. He's a great guy, but he writes fucking edits on pages. That's not how you edit. He gets things in files and hands them to me. I'm dyslexic, so now he's trusting a dyslexic. And I'm watching where page now where he spells brutta, BRUDDH, and then on another page he does BRADDAH, and it's frustrating.
It's a dialect thing.
You think?
Depending on the kind of
Context?
mindset that character is trying to have, brother with a THA or with a B or the UDA could be correct.
All right, I'll just leave it.
Because now you're trying to capture dialect and spelling, so I would just straight up ask him if you can, what way do you want me to spell this?
I'll just follow the edits because again, it's not my book, and sometimes when it's not your book,
Yeah. If he's got it spelled out there for you, boy, spell it exactly how he said, and he unfortunately can send you an edit if need be with it spelled differently. It's just like, as somebody who does work where like I send somebody a design, they try and do it, I review it and send it back to them telling them no, not right, and go through reiterations of that, you have my sympathy. That's the constant dilemma. Like, do I reach out for clarification or do I just do it and wait for them to tell me it's still wrong?
yeah, it's weird. But I'll just leave it as it is. And this is a book in Hawaii, so he decided to go to someone there, and he was like, "I'm telling you, this is it." And me and him, the editing process sometimes gets heated. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes that shit gets heated. And it did get heated between me and him at one point. And I made all the points that I made, and he went to the Hawaiian person, and we had to wait for the. I'm not identifying who they are specifically here, but the person wound up getting back to him, and everything I had said was kind of right. So now I'm nervous about taking something from him. I know it sounds awful. Don't hate me, but it is true. I am nervous about that at the moment because I want the best for him. Ultimately it's always about what's not just for him, but for the people who have spent money on this book. I don't want them to have anything but the best.
No. And I get that because and I get that energy that it's different between who you're working with, just on the dynamics between you and that coworker coworkers, so to speak. Because I have, there's some coworkers I have that I will immediately call them and be like, hey, I just want to clarify. There's our others where I'm like, nope, I'm going to do exactly what they said, and if it's still wrong, they can tell me again, because trying to ask for clarification is just not worth the energy, time, effort, or frustration.
Yeah, I get that. Trust me, do I get that. But he's not a bad person at all. He's actually a very good human being. But he gets stubborn at some of the weirdest times. Like I kind of like look at him like right now. This is where you're I'm telling you I'm right. Like I know I'm right. No. Trust me. And it's, you want to trust the person. So I put off. I'm a big fan of not doing triple work. So I told him, I was like, you go get your friend, you come back to me, because he wanted me to edit it. And I knew some of the things he was doing is contextually wrong. And he just was in his head. And he's the creator. He should be able to be in his head. You read my comic books, all the capital letters I use was the Shakespearean thing. It was meant to give emphasis. So for those who don't know, M has been, I guess this is credit sheet, M has been helping me with editing. So when we first started editing, she worked on Wolf and Fox, which to this date, Wolf and Fox is, by many people who have read it, they're not only favorite, but really felt like I had stepped into, like, because I have a lot of fans of my writing, but like that particular book, people were so blown away by that I get nothing but compliments on it. And they're like, this just reads good. There's not a mistake in the book. That's what it is. She would hound me. No, this makes okay, that's nice. You like the Shakespearean thing. How many people you think get this? She's like, it's not what people want. It takes me out. Do you want to take people out of your book? Is that what you want? You want to write all this? We do all this work, and then they see a capital and they get confused. Why is this a capital now? And they start thinking of it. I came this close to switching the font to all caps just to stop having the argument, which is what this book is. And he doesn't like any of the bold letters. Like he doesn't like letters. I'm a wordy bitch. You've read Barbara Unleashed issue 1. You know I'm a wordy bitch. I'm a storyteller.
Yep.
So
yeah, the blog format works very well for you.
Yeah, and in this book, he didn't want it. But I literally looked at him and I said, you have two choices. We can do 2 issues, or you can do 1 issue and leave me alone. Leave me space to letter it. Let me tell the story. I'll tell it quick. I can make it faster. And we could go in later and expand on it and really show it. I was like, because you can't have it both ways. So either you're going to do 2 issues, it's be 64 pages, or we'll do the 32-page version of it. And I even got it down to, I think it's like 18, 19 pages. So I did what I said I'd do, but it is a little more wordy. But the lawyer we were talking about did wind up reading it and loved it. And I was a fan of that. I liked that they loved what I did. Because, of course, you get tickled by it.
Every creator does.
And it was like, this is so authentic. You wrote this. And they're talking to him because they're connected to him. And I'm like, this motherfucker is always getting my credit for, I've been in front of him. And they're like, oh, you're such a good writer. And he's like, yeah, we worked really hard on this. And he's taking the credit. I'm sitting right there. And I'm like, this is what just a writer feels like. And he was talking to some people. It would be very rude of me to interrupt at that moment. So I did what any reasonable person did. I made him regret his life every minute after that. I constantly dogged him. I'm like, do you want me to stop talking? I'm just a writer. He was like, come on, man. It wasn't that bad. I'm like, I don't know. If I sat here and told everyone I drew this shit, I think you'd have a problem.
Yeah. That's true. I can empathize with that in other spaces.
And as someone who's, go ahead. We have comments. Let's do comments, actually.
Yeah. So we got. Let me scroll down because it scroll. You know how all of a sudden it'll just jump your comments back.
Mm-hmm.
So this is way back to talking about what to look for in real life spaces. As an empath who can't do large crowds or loud music or more strobe lights, smaller venues would be better. But honestly, if I walked in there and it's overly crowded or overly loud, and God forbid if there's strobe lights, I'm out.
Yeah.
Bye. I'm not looking for a panic attack with my play. Like.
Tell me you don't understand kink by setting up a dungeon that way, because that's what I see. This is someone.
Strobe lights. Like, I have never heard of a worse idea than laser lights or strobe lights in a place where people are trying to hit things like a very specific spot on a person.
You mean aiming? Because that's what we're fucking supposed to do. And when you play with partners who are gorgeous and amazing but are smaller, that makes shit fucking harder. It makes it so much harder.
Well, and the next thing you know, like, for dancing, I love the strobe light in a dance club because it is kind of cool to get that jumpy movement. Could you imagine that going in your eyes?
I can.
To assess your bottom's response to the stimulus?
It's happened to me. So I went to this place, and it's a swinger club, and it feels like a swinger club that people brought BDSM furniture into it. I don't like sitting on the furniture, just to say that. And this guy they were about to close it out. They weren't making any money from it. And this guy was like, very, very, like, I really want to know, can you guys help me? I need to know how we can make this better. They're threatening to close everything. So I went to this place. I don't like this place. And I don't like it for multiple reasons. But this day I was like, I'm going to be a nice guy. I'm going to go there and I'm going to tell him how to fix it. And I told him, and it really cheap ways to fix it. Lights in corners, get rid of that strobe light. Just don't turn it on. You don't even have to move it down. On the night of a kink event, just do it. So I went through this, and I wrote notes. Like, I did an assessment, and manager me popped up. Gave him 2 pages of notes, right? They were too busy doing cocaina to listen to anything I tried to tell them while I was there, and just ignored it. Some people started coming back and it went away, so no changes were made. And it's just still to me, it's amateur night. It's amateur night in kink. And the people who show up there, mostly the sex people, are like, oh, you spanked me, let's fuck.
Yeah, that sounds like the perfect place to bring in newbies who are dangerous just due to naivety and ignorance.
That's
like their own not knowing what they don't know are dangerous. And combine that with the predators who know that's what's there. This sounds like a literal recipe for a consent violation disaster.
It's a Shark Tank. It's like a real life, like what I mentioned in my book, Shark Tank. That is exactly what's going on. And it is cray.
Yeah. Amazon chick loved the tissue paper comment about her hanging about ethics. That once you start looking at them, you realize they're written on tissue paper.
Yeah. Well, ethics, though, I would say argumentatively that ethics, if you look hard enough, you can find the real ethics of our community. Consent, one of the ethics. Aftercare is an ethical thing, but it's the community's ethics, and it starts getting gray very quickly. And I think that's where the tissue paper is. I think we have like a tablet with like consent written on it, and negotiation and communication and safe words, and then it's all tissue paper. Like we have 4 things we can agree on.
They put on the like piece of tape that doesn't really quite stick in terms of consent for the word ethical, that kind of stuff.
Enthusiastic, taped on. Here's some drugs. You'll be enthusiastic. Sprinkle.
So, facts over emotion always in helping people is what they're getting at. People can only see situations from where they're at.
Well, let's talk about. Hold on. I want to go back to facts over emotions. And I used to be a big fact over fiction kid. The problem with that, and I know this by reading a book called Behavior, we have to understand that you could be completely right. You could 100% be right. But if the person doesn't connect to it, doesn't understand why you're right, you are yelling into the fucking wind, my friends. You don't even understand it. You are just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And you have to understand that. So if someone is talking to you from an emotional place, address that. Instead of trying to run from it, I actually say lean into it and be like, and I've done this to people before, like, we'll do like one of the worst ones. Well, you did something we didn't negotiate to. And let's say I'm going to take it from negotiation. So I don't make excuses for predators. And you look at your partner and you go, no, we specifically said this. I asked if I could do this, and this is what I did. And then that partner goes, well, yeah, but I didn't really want you to use it as a punishment on me. I wanted us to just try it at a point. Well, when we were negotiating that, you didn't say that. You said, I want you to mix this into our play. You never communicated with me that you wanted this to be a punishment. So it was on the board. You said you wanted to try new things tonight. This isn't proper communication. I'm not mad at you, but you have to understand it's unfair for you to try to come in afterwards and not say it. Why wouldn't you use your safe words in those moments? We have yellow for this moment. We've gone over this. I can't trust you if you're not using yellow. Now, that whole scenario that I just showed you can be really great, but it also can be used as coercion if you try to gaslight someone into believing things that did or didn't happen. Our lifestyle is so difficult. This is why I say don't do contracts. Because a lot of times when these kids are making contracts instead of play profiles, instead of negotiation, instead of using the forms I have, and they're just writing things, people forget to, one, write if they're a switching couple, what that means when you switch. Number two, it's also about kind of prioritizing what this means. Like, oh, you can do anything within negotiated. If you have a specific time you want that done, that falls on you, not them, to figure out when that time is.
And that's a perfect example. And that's where I'd say I think this is where it's you need to teach. You need to teach without being emotional, but you need to keep in mind that emotions exist.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with communication. You need to try and communicate, like, especially for those initial vetting, negotiation, the after scene follow-up conversations. You need to try to approach having those conversations not without emotions, but trying to be more towards the neutral bandwidth of emotions, right? But you can't forget that they exist. Because just like you said, the way you approached it turns that issue into a teaching moment, hopefully to build better. But it could have just as easily been like, well, you didn't tell me you wanted it to be a taster activity. Therefore, you're not allowed to say you're upset that I used it as a punishment, right? And now it's coercion. And
Nope.
now you've just harmed the dynamic. You've harmed that other person's possible confidence and trust in you just by slightly saying things differently.
And we all make human mistakes. Let me tell you, I would get frustrated. And when I got frustrated, I'd be like, why did you move in that moment? And I wasn't trying to put blame. I wasn't telling them it was their fault. Ultimately, it was my fault. I was swinging it. I was frustrated that they moved and not expressing, hey, I screwed up because you slightly moved and that's on me. And I feel awful and I'm sorry. That is how I was feeling. And because I wasn't identifying that feeling, and I was just like, well, you moved and that's why you got hit there. And while what I'm saying is accurate, I'm also sounding like I'm putting it on them instead of telling how I really feel. I have ADHD. When we fuck up, we feel like total asses. We get scared and we jump into our feelings and we start talking without thought. And that was a learnable moment for me. That was a huge, and let me tell you, I might be the kink educator, but I'm not the kink god. I don't have it all figured out all the time. I'm never going to tell you I'm not going to make a mistake. As a matter of fact, I think you need to know that I do make mistakes. So you understand that you're dealing with someone who actually, oh boy, he's getting this wrong, is actually like, oh boy, you know, who's actually able to come here and say, oh, I get it wrong sometimes. Because that's important, you know, being able to. So while facts matter, so do context in this. And I don't like minutia when it comes to getting consent, but in moments like this, the minutia actually does matter.
It does. It does. Well, and not just that. Like, we have all, not saying we have all, but once you've been in this lifestyle long enough, okay? Like this is one of the good markers I tell people when they're vetting someone as a potential play partner. Once you've gotten to a point where you both have basically decided that yes, we're gonna approach vetting each other as potential play partners. One of my most important questions I like to ask is, what mistakes have you made?
Yeah.
In your kink journey. And if they say I've never made a mistake, it means one of two things. They're so new they literally have not had the time yet to make one. Which, trust me, it doesn't really take that long to make a mistake in this lifestyle. Or they're lying. Because everybody has made a mistake at some point, and I want to know that they own their mistakes, and I want to hear how they addressed or learned from the mistake they made.
Yeah, but you also have to remember that some people, the more dangerous thing too here that we're not talking about, are the people who just can't egotistically understand that they did make a mistake. So now they're arguing about something because they don't want to own the moment. And that is really kind of scary when we run into a moment like that. Oh, so bad. Oh. If you hear me moaning, it's because fucking editing in drawing when you have sloppy fucking handwriting. I'm going to pick on him so much.
Does anybody not have sloppy handwriting when they're like editing in like Microsoft Paint?
But there's a text option. There's a fucking text option.
True.
I could show, like, you couldn't even, I know it's supposed to be a comma, but it looks like COMRE. I'm like, what the fuck is that supposed to be about? And then he has this whole word put together, and then I don't know. I just don't know. I'm just gonna do it that way because I've edited too much, and I warned him about this. When people start moving couches, my ADHD is like, this has to end or someone will be sacrificed.
Yeah.
And I'm not playing.
I'm gonna bring it back around. But coming back around to the fact that mistakes will happen. You are completely right. There is this level of people who are just either egotistically or emotional immaturity unable to recognize that they made a mistake. And that's very dangerous.
Yeah, because people want the perfect record.
That's why it's in my tool bag of questions to ask.
It's not a bad question. Don't get me wrong, but you also have to leave room for, and this is what we've talked about with the vetting, like like the whole asking someone their partners. And the other problem with asking someone about their former partners is you're going to out somebody by doing this. You have to tell someone, hey, I want to get laid by this new person. Can you vouch for me now? It's awkward. It's fucking, if some dude called me up and was like, yo, what'd you think of that girl, man? What could, because it's always dumb shit. What can I do to, like, I don't want to have those talks.
Yeah, well, and that's why it's so hard, and that's part of why, for me, so two-sided. What you were getting at is the fact that when you're vetting, you should always ask open-ended questions. Don't ask questions that are quickly answered with a yes/no, because you'll get a lot more information when you just let them give you their open-ended answer. Like, just let them verbal diarrhea at you, than you will by giving them yes/no questions. So that was the first part. But then the second round of vetting, that's why to me it's so critical to get to a point where you have both agreed that you're kind of at this point of vetting each other, and that you have the conversation to be like, well, do you have any past play partners I could reach out to to ask about you. And this is two-sided to me here. One, you need to ask them, let them provide them, and also give them a chance or ask them, hey, do you want to touch base with them first to let them know I may be reaching out to them? Because cold DMing somebody to vet someone is invasive, not a good way to start anything. And two, the other reason I like it is if I give you one of my good friends for you to vet with, and they come back and tell me, yeah, they were asking me how to get in your pants easiest, I've got information about you as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
but it's also sometimes, like, especially, I will say this, and it's not a. I'm trying to think how to word this as accurately as possible. There is jealousy, especially if you were with someone who is monogamous, and that jealousy, because in monogamy, jealousy is very okay and celebrated. So when you have a monogamous partner and you go, oh, you can go vet with this person, they're not going to try to help you, people. So if you're monogamous, I would not suggest this behavior.
yeah, and that's true. And you know what? That's a lens I haven't looked through in a very long time because I also typically play asexually. Very rarely does the play that I've done. Right now I have one partner that I will do sexual kind of play with. Otherwise, it's non-sexual play with people, which for me makes it a little easier to ask those questions because I'm not asking, hey, is so-and-so a good time? I'm like, hey, are they actually accurate with that single tail enough for me to trust that they know what they're doing, right? That's part of it. But also, like you said, that kind of vetting doesn't really work when you're vetting for monogamy. It also doesn't really work when, I'd say it works better if you happen to be part of a bubble community. They kind of have consistent people in it, and you can kind of at the bubble community ask around. But as you said, you still have to be careful because jealousy and personal agendas abound in those spaces. So you have to take even whatever information you get with a grain of salt, which is why at the end of the day, really, in my opinion, the best way to vet somebody is just to take time. Take time and earn that trust both ways. Make them earn your trust and make sure that you're earning their trust.
Mm-hmm.
You can always do another scene another day. There's always another time to do the scene with the ball gag. You don't need to do it day one. Because unfortunately, if you do it play date one, you may never have another play date 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, some of this, it's why I always say people who don't know just don't know, and we have to be so careful because I know as someone who has done this, been there, done that, it's not always fair for them because you have to slow down and you have to realize they haven't done this. They don't know what's really going on. They don't understand what they're signing up for sometimes. And especially when you get the creepers, right?
Well, and that's why newbies are almost the number one target. They're the number one prey for the kinkster predator.
Absolutely.
Because they clearly just don't know. Predators in kink spaces don't come with big teeth and bright colors. They just look like humans.
Yeah.
And they may have some various behavior patterns that you could pick up on. They may have ways that they do things that you could maybe pick up on. Things that they don't do that you could pick up on. But until you gain the knowledge and the experience of knowing what to look for, you don't know. And that's what's so hard is the most vulnerable people are the newest people. And when you're new, inherently you don't know anything, right? And that's not any new person just trying to figure out how to internet about this lifestyle, you know?
Hmm.
They're still trying to figure out what key phrases can I put into Google to actually get to the deep info I want.
Yes. And if there, and there is this, like I see, if I have to do a BDSM 101 class one more time, I honestly look at what we do on this educational channel as a revolving door, just like school. I'm teaching a subject. This means I'm going to have new people constantly showing up to learn more about that subject. And we're going to continue to talk about the subject as often as we need to until everyone feels comfortable with the subject. And I hate when you get these creators who are like, "Oh, well, I'm so tired of 101." I'm not tired of anything. I have so many people who message me inbox, "Look, I'm sorry if I ask you this and it's the wrong thing, or if this is too simple of a question for you." And I'm like, there's no such thing as a too simple of a thing. But this, I know it's an issue because they've clearly went to someone else and someone else was a dick about it, right?
Oh yeah. Well, it's a two-sided coin for me. There's again, because they're new, they don't know. Again, not their fault and understandable for them to be there. Not so understandable for people to be dicks. Like, the new person who didn't realize they were asking a person who's giving education on 301 level ropes 101 info. They're not wrong for asking for the 101 info, but they don't recognize that that person probably may not frankly want to bother doing it. And that is not the new person's fault. That's on the experienced person not kindly directing them to the proper resources. There's that. There's also this stigma around being a newbie. Like, there's a reason I try not to use the word noob, right? When I refer to new people, or I try and say green, kind of the idea of like the green word, or green as in they're just, a little sapling in their kink journey, because there's such the stigma around being new just in like mainstream culture that I feel like kind of comes in.
Yeah. And
I also think that's. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and that's very accurate. And it's something that you don't know till you know again, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where it's. And I see this shift a little bit, but I think that's where it's so important as educators that while we tell people they are responsible to seek out education and knowledge, that being new and not knowing isn't their fault, or it doesn't make them any less valid a kinkster, any less valid a person. Like, you can be new and be valid. Being new is not a bad thing. We almost need more of that, but also you have the flip side of that, where, I don't necessarily, for me, I've been in the lifestyle for around 13 or 14 years now. For me, I prefer to play with more experienced people, but it's not an automatic rejection from me if somebody says they're new. But I do want to know that they're new, because the way I'll approach interacting with them will be different than somebody who, I know for a fact they've been in the lifestyle for 10 years as well, and I've seen them negotiate stuff. Like, I don't need to explain what negotiation is to those people, right? So I need that info that they're new, but the same problem is that information that they're new almost puts a target on their back for predators.
Yeah, it really does put the target on their back.
I'm going to look at some comments. Okay. Mistakes are human as long as we address and own them. I agree. Emotions have to be built right into the conversation 100% from, those are both from to try to think more with level-headed as opposed to emotional. But that's a goal. That's not a requirement. No mistake admission is a red flag for me. I can see that. Accountability is key in building trust. I'd say it's one of the biggest keys in building trust. It's showing that when you make a mistake, you're accountable for it, and then you're there to try and help repair any damage done.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in like a you violated someone's consent kind of way. I mean it in a like, we had a communication breakdown that I see hurt you. I'm here to try and do what I can to help repair it.
Yeah. Because repairing it is super important, for the record.
Mm-hmm. Some people don't realize dominance is not overpowering physically or morally or conversationally. That's in therapy. Yeah. You go for it.
People aren't patient enough when it comes to BDSM. I had said this on the channel yesterday. They want to rush into the fantasy without understanding the mechanics. Someone had recently said that what we do is more like a sport and we need to train for it, and they hit it. That is very astute, very intelligent way to, in my opinion, look at it, you know? Because it kind of is that, right? It's a sport. We train, we study, we look at things, we figure them out, you know?
Yeah, and I'd say, to me, it's training. It's an endurance sport.
Yeah.
This isn't a sprint. This is a marathon. This has innings. We have rounds. It's not. There may be some people who it is a sprint. They do their thing once a month in their bedroom. They're done. That's it. But that's not the case for a lot of kinksters. There's a lot that are. There's a lot that aren't. And you have to figure out which one you're in.
And people also have to realize, and this one's very important, that most kinksters aren't going to community stuff. Most people in the lifestyle never go to the community. And why is that? Because everyone has made them feel icky in the community. The community does a really great job of making people not want to be in our community because we allow raucous, bad behaviors. We don't hold people accountable, and very often it's the people running the events because they're running a slaughterhouse in their mind. They don't care. They're just there. Like I once heard, I was with this young human being who was interested in it. We were talking, and they were not being 100% with me about certain things. Like I guess they wanted to date other people, which wouldn't have been a problem if they weren't telling me. And I could tell when someone's hiding something from me. You know what I mean? But she decided to go play with this other individual who flat out told him, I don't do aftercare. And I remember being like, that is the biggest red flag ever. They are telling you it's beneath them. And because you might not have to hug someone, but don't tell them you don't do any aftercare. That to me is a huge red flag. You know? But yeah, what do I know?
I'm with you. I mean, have boundaries around what aftercare is for sure. Like I said, I typically play non-sexually. So sexual entanglements as aftercare are not something I'm willing to do. If you need that, please feel free to arrange for another partner to meet that meet, because I will not be. If that means we can't play, that's fine. It is what it is. Thanks for the combo. We'll go our separate ways. But no aftercare. No asking me if I need, I typically play as a bottom. So no asking me if I need water. No just checking in to make sure everything went okay. Yeah, I'm out. That's a no.
Yeah, I could get that. I don't think I saved it.
Other comments. All right. Figuring out with a potential partner is mandatory. Nobody wants to slow down and build a healthy dynamic. Yep. Literally, the biggest problems. And I also feel like nobody wants to slow down and build a healthy dynamic. Something that my area struggles with is nobody wants to slow down and verify that that person's actually a good potential partner for them.
Well,
Right?
it's
So, like, it is a building the healthy dynamic, but I'm also talking about just the, like, vetting, are they a good fit for me portion. Were you going to say something?
no, I mean, I was trying to think how to word it. I think vetting's important. People are too excited to get to the play without actually learning how to do the things we do, like we've been talking about. It's almost like being so excited to cook that really expensive meat you just got over the weekend. You skip through all the videos that tell you the prep stuff that you're supposed to do. You don't do the prep stuff, and you go outside and make the fire as hot as you can and throw the meat on the grill. And then you wonder why everything gets burnt. This is basically the effects of what is going on with a lot of people, in my estimation, and how I feel about it. What do I know?
No, I feel that there's a whole lot of people that want to be Instadoms or Insta-subs. And typically the Instadoms are, they're like, oh yeah, I can hit you with a single tail without ever having even practiced swinging it once. You know, so you have Instadoms like that, or Instatops, whatever you want to call it. And then you have these Insta-subs who are just so desperate to submit or bottom that they don't even take the time to verify sometimes that that's actually something they're even into doing. Not the submission part, but like, you know, if they're like, oh, I just want to submit, so I'll take bottom impact play, and they literally have never even taken the time to think about if they like that.
Yeah, but again, how do you know what you don't know? And a lot of times I come back to that when I think of things, like, how do you know the things you don't know?
Well, and especially, so with specific activities, that's where it's so critical to be honest about where your experience is at. You know, everybody had never been hit with something before that's into impact. Everybody has never been in a DS dynamic that's in one now at some point. Like, everybody has been a insert activity, newbie or virgin, if you want, at some point. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you share that information with people, it gives them a chance to make sure you know what you're signing up for doing in doing that activity. But also, it allows for what I call tasters, where you're not in a dynamic headspace. You're typically fully clothed. There isn't a lot of, I'll say, hot and heavy energy, and you're literally just going to test out as best you can whatever that activity is.
And that's important.
Test out an impact toy on a forearm or a calf. You can test out rope with clothing on and not actually binding any arms or ligaments down, so that you still have mostly free reign of your body. There's a lot of different ways that you can test things that allow you to stay as much as possible in a sober mind frame. Isn't quite the right word, but it's the best I can come up with, because to me, once you start getting those play hormones going, the endorphins, possibly the adrenaline, all that, you're not really in your sober mind, right? And you can test it to find out, because you may think it's really hot to do an impact scene with someone, and yeah, it sounds really wonderful. A really good way for it to be not hot and actually kill your plans for the night is to, once you're in the scene and you're starting and they're finally bringing out that pain you were okay with, you actually realize you completely hate this. And if you do, yellow or red at that moment, that is your right, and you should do that. But it could be beneficial to say, hey, I've never tried Kings before. Do you think we could get together before the date we set to play, or maybe a little earlier on the day we set to play, to just test those out on my arm or my calf a little bit first?
And that can eliminate a lot. What's that?
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
What did you say?
I was just gonna say it gives you the time to maybe adjust your scene plan if you find out you really didn't like Haynes before you're in the middle of it.
Agreed. I'll let you all in on a little secret here. The first time I generally tie someone up, unless I know they have like an extensive amount of actual experience, I tie them loosely. I tie it so they can actually escape. The reason I do this is it's actually a lot more. It's a lot more, I guess, insight for me, because the ones who aren't trying to escape, well, okay, I know who you are now. You want to be bound. You don't. There's no going to be no struggling with you. You're just in this to kind of lay back and be who you're going to be in the moment. Okay, nothing wrong with that. We're going to do this. Or the ones who struggle, I now know. Oh, okay, we got a Houdini on our hands. So this is someone that I'm going to have to know how to do it and all that. Plus, the first time you tie someone up, they are going to freak out a little bit. Even if they don't mean to, there's that sudden fear of, oh shit, I am so fucking helpless right now, you know?
So for me, because rope is one of the things I do like to top in, now I keep it the floor work though. I typically will, for the first time, if I'm doing ties, I'm not gonna tie wrist to wrist or wrist to ankles or ankles to ankles. I'm not gonna do any actual like bondage tie. So I may put a single column on their wrist or their ankles or something to give them that sensation, but I'm not going to bind it in any way that prevents movement via the tie. Like maybe I'll pull at the end of that single column so they can pull against it to see what that feels like. But that's typically the way I approach it, so they can kind of get a sense for it without immediately also being in a position where they feel like they could frankly be taken advantage of. Not saying that every top will take advantage of them in that sense, but I feel like it's just an extra little bit of comfort for them to know that if they really needed to, they could still run away freely.
Yeah. It's a good way to kind of go about it for certain. Do we have any more comments? Because I saw a couple things pop up.
Yeah, we do. We got them. Good. There's been a lot of good comments. I did comment that all the comments have been really good. Okay, you definitely got to provide a safe space to communicate before, during, and after from therapy, 100%. Amazon Che, not so much stigma on being new as there is on the chance of being taken advantage of for being new. Therapy. I always say we needed color-coded belts like they do in the martial arts, referring to like experience. Like, here's your red belt for, play that involves red things, I wish. I love that idea. But then the problem is, who is the council that gives you your new belt when you've reached that next level? And there we have the problem again. Okay, then we go. Lazy communication. Aftercare should be discussed in the negotiation before anything ever starts. Fully agree. You should, we did a Wednesday night meeting where we went through negotiation and kind of everything that needed to be included, and it was very much the negotiation of what you're actually going to do, and then including all of the relevant information you need to know about that person, such as three, or I kind of consider it four parts of the scene. Kind of have the pre-scene, the active scene, what most people call aftercare, the immediate after the scene, where it's just literally physically taking care of each other and trying to come back into your sober mindset again. And then I say there's the fourth, which is that follow-up, the check-ins. So the check-ins to manage drop, as well as the check-in afterwards to just be like, okay, how did the scene go? You know, a little bit of build each other up, but also try and see if there's anywhere to make improvements. Dana said it's also hard to connect to local people. The real people seem to stay hidden. You're not wrong.
Well, they stay home. They don't want to deal with the bullshit of these people who come to community things and pound their chest and think that they get to decide for other people who does what. What are we doing, you know?
Yeah. Well, and you brought this up at one point that a lot of the people who find their partner, they come to the community space to find a partner. They find their partner and then they both leave. Because the community itself is inherently problematic. So they came when they needed something, and as soon as they don't need it anymore, they leave and leave the toxic community behind to continue in the ever continuing meat market that it is.
Yep. And then they show back up when they have a breakup.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see that a lot. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, they'll be back in 6 months. Don't worry.
Yeah. So Dana said that, and then Sarah did share at the have you checked out FetLife, go to Munch. I feel like that's easier said than done someplace because depending on where you are, your Munch may or may not be safe, or there may not be any. There are places in the U.S., and that's where we're based out of, that you may have to travel 2 or 3 hours to find a Munch or more. Great idea. Meet to test things out, and then Sarah shared in their area, they host intro nights for various activities, not like to play, literally like a taster event. That's typically what I call them. I call them taster events. It's not about play. It's literally about experiencing them to decide if it's something you might be into. And then Dana also shared again, that is a great idea. Enjoy the sensation of being tied just to adjust, seeing if it is indeed, I'm assuming, something you're into or something along those lines. There commented. That's the one downside with TikTok. It limits how much space you have to comment during the lives.
Uh-huh.
And depending on how quick the comments are flowing, you can't get part 2 in before there's more.
I just usually scroll down, honestly, to find it.
Yeah.
You know what I love? When someone says, just put it on the next page with lettering, not realizing that you can't just put it on the next page because the next page is an entirely different scene. For fuck's sake.
They're in the city. You have to just put the dialogue on the next page and they're somehow miraculously in the forest.
Oh, it's a different character entirely, a different character's story. There's no way. And they're just not looking. They're writing with their little pen and being like, oh, right here. Not reading the whole story. Bad editing, kids. Don't let an artist edit. I guarantee you that part was his own things. He's trying to move things around. And he's the one who's drawing shit where I can't letter things.
Comic book problems.
Yeah. And he even missed another problem with it.
Have a good night, Amazon chick. She is dropping off. So learned so much tonight. Thank you. Gotta go. Is there anything else? Because this one's going for a while.
We're done with the questions or comments now?
Yeah, we're caught up on comments.
Good.
Yeah,
It was bound to happen.
it was.
We've been going a little longer also because we're trying to drive the I don't know if it's working, mind you, but we're trying to drive the sign-ups.
I'll go look. I'll pull up my tablet and see what your current viewership is at. So, we're trying to increase the number of followers on the account because, I mean, social media, but also specifically because we're trying to hit 10K to get TED Talk access. Is that right?
Not just TED Talk, but that'll impress TED Talk, but we get actual tools from our friends at TikTok that will help us do things like playlists. Playlists will allow all of our videos to be in one location. So when they go to BDSM 101, there'll be plenty of things for them to actually look into and get their minds wrapped into an idea that we want to really kind of show them without worrying too much. You know?
Mm-hmm. So, Sarah P tossed something out on my request for comments or questions. And the question is, you guys for or against CNC? So, I'll start because you told us a lot. The first thing is, are we talking Kinkster CNC? Or are we talking Book Talk CNC, which is really just free use? I am not inherently against any one kink. There are kinks I personally participate in. There are kinks I'm willing to share experience or educate on, and there are kinks I participate in that I will not educate on. And there's kinks I just don't do. They're just not my thing. I don't think any of them are wrong. So I'm not really ever against a kink. I can be against the definition, and the idea that CNC is basically free use is one I'm against.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're going to have something and rebrand it, don't rebrand it to like a bullshit version of its former self.
Yeah. Because somebody was talking, I was watching a video, and you had duetted or stitched somebody else's thing that was trying to talk about free use and the difference between free use and CNC. And I feel like the main difference between free use and CNC for me is the fear level. Okay. Just making sure. Sarah did comment back. Obviously, it's not the free use version. So, I personally, when negotiated between two informed consenting adults, I have no issue with those who participate in CNC at all. But to me, I just wanted to say the big difference for me between free use and CNC is the fear factor, not the show. Because for me, free use is typically not the biggest fear factor you might have is the location of engagement, I'll say, with free use. Because if they take that permission in a more public space, maybe you have a bit of an exposure risk, which could be a fear. Where, to me, almost with CNC, you're almost doing it for the level of fear. You are trying to get the adrenaline going to some degree. But also, it's not, CNC isn't limited to sexual activities. Where I feel like free use is pretty focused on sexual activities, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell me when. Well, do you want me to answer this one?
Well, I was just going to say, Sarah added a little bit more to their reasoning behind it. I just left a space I've worked from as a dom for years because they banned CNC.
Well, I'm sure they banned CNC also because CNC has a likelihood of going horribly wrong very quickly when people don't treat it as a negotiation. Because what you might have heard from CNC, which was rebranded just about a year ago, and I actually agree with this one evolution of a word completely and totally, was the original CNC was you don't get to pick anything, we pick for you type of situation. That is not what they're referring to as CNC anymore. Nowadays, CNC is considered something that is consensual and it is planned out and you know everything that's going to go on, but you're trusting your partner. This is why we're saying free use is not CNC. Uh, CNC should be off on its own and shouldn't become an umbrella term. And that's part of the problem is they're trying to make CNC an umbrella term. And free use is not anyway non-consensual. You're giving a person consent to use you anytime. That's the end of the story. There's no non-consent. CNC is generally something that is meant to have some sort of struggle. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's where I think because you're trying to have this level of struggle or resistance, that's where almost the focus of CNC is more to get the adrenaline going. That's not the intent behind free use. Right? And like you said, free use, you did consent to it. You had a conversation. You decided to allow anytime access. That's fine. Free use doesn't typically include potentially being dragged. I guess I'm curious from Sarah if you kind of agree with that idea. CNC to me, so Sarah commented, CNC to me just means no, said aloud, out loud, has no meaning. Sub always has the real control anyways.
What? Wait a minute, reread that?
So exactly what it says, the CNC to me just means, quote, no, said aloud. Like allowed to, I think they meant out loud, maybe talk to text, okay? No said out loud has no meaning. Sub always has the real control anyways. I feel like to me, I agree that idea falls under CNC, but if I'm being honest, that's a very watered down version of CNC for me. Because the whole point of the idea of safe words is that if you have safe words, no, how do I say this? No always means no until you negotiated something else. Okay? If I have a negotiated safe words, and in my negotiation of safe word, I have said, if I don't say red, assume you can keep going. That includes that if I say no, you can still keep going. I see how that falls under CNC, but yeah, I don't know. Are you feeling like I were the idea of just saying no aloud, making it CNC feels watered down?
Telling them no and them still doing it in an arranged dynamic is just them being your dom and doing it. CNC's original idea was that it was going to push limits of someone. So the original version was if you knew they had a fear of spiders, you'd get a tarantula and hog tie them or tie them up right next to a tarantula who might have be devenomized, or depending on your kink, maybe they haven't been. So it was about going for the uncomfortable. It was about going for the absolute fear and terror of the moment, if that makes sense. Nowadays, it is much more think of it this way. It would probably be more like you kind of chasing your partner down in the woods and taking them there. And even though they might know what's about to happen, it's the fact that you are coming towards them in an aggressive way. There was an old term that a lot of people use about the R word. I won't say it. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't say it. So please don't type it out. It's unconsensual unconsensual, like bad, doing something to someone that you just want to do it to, without thought.
Yeah. And I think that is the issue. Is I think that so the chasing them down in the woods and taking them there concept. The old term for it, I think, has gotten to the point where that word is understandably, and I agree with, causes such visceral reaction in folks that it's not a word we want to associate with play in our space. It's just that word and the victims of that word demand the respect that we aren't using it and tarnishing it by calling it a play. And so I think that's where CNC started to mean more that chase them down and take them kind of thing. Where to me, that is one form of CNC, but also what you were saying of I have this fear or even a phobia of something, and I am consenting that if you so chose to, in the middle of a scene, include my phobia, that I will let you do that.
But you don't have to ask before doing it in that scene. You're green lit to do it anytime you want now.
Right. And a lot of that is, and this is part of why, for me, people watering down CNC to free use, like specifically to free use, okay, is so dangerous because the CNC that I think of, the chase them down and take them, or the bring in a phobia kind of CNC, requires so much understanding and acceptance of the responsibility of the potential emotional fallout from that scene. It should never be taken lightly. And that's where the free use flavor of what like Book Talk is applying to the term CNC is so dangerous, because I have already been at this point for many years that if I'm talking to a potential new partner and they say they're into CNC, I always make them explain in detail what that means to me. It's now becoming more and more common where newer people are coming in, saying they're into CNC, and once I ask them to explain what that means to them, they really mean free use. And, for me, I take the time to find out what do they mean by that term, and I do that with a lot of terms, but not everybody will take the time to do that with them. And now you have somebody who thinks they sign up for free use in the middle of the chase them down and take them scene that they were never ready to be a part of.
Yeah.
I agree with Sarah. No, that's not for new partners.
And that's what you're getting on TikTok right now. All these new people talking about doing shit that none of them are ready for. Gonna wind up sending people to fucking therapists because they're gonna trigger. Like, that's one thing with this lifestyle. We can certainly trigger people to have things that go well beyond our relationships with them. And it's why we should be so careful, so mindful, and yet we're not.
Well, I wouldn't say there are people out there that try to be very mindful with it. The problem is there's just not enough of them.
No, I was talking about the TikTokers.
Aren't mindful.
For the record, I was talking about the TikTokers who are clearly not ready for what they think that's going on in their little heads.
Well, I mean, it's just the loss of critical thinking with a lot of. So there's a few TikTok creators I do follow that I think do a good job of, like, I know you've mentioned Moxie Rose on TikTok. I follow her as well. But there's so many other people that claim to be educators that are trying to teach people how to do activities on TikTok that, like, have literally never thought through the fact that they're literally giving somebody the permission to, from their 2-minute video, now go do something that one of the potential outcomes is fatality. Do you really think you have the experience, knowledge, guidance, and ability to fully educate somebody on an activity in 2 minutes or 10 minutes properly, that you should be doing that for something where one of the risk profiles set for
I'd hope not.
No, but they do it all the time. It's terrifying.
Yeah, it is. And it's not much we can do about it a lot of days, sadly.
True.
Because you just have to, I mean, you can call him out like I do, and then what does the kid do? He just takes off the fact that I tagged him in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So go spit for me, right? I did the right thing as the educator. I called him out. That was the testing point, because he just made another stupid video saying, "Oh, you guys, I'm so right about myself, and you guys aren't listening to how wonderful I am and how much it is me who knows better than all of you mortals." You know? And the funny thing is, when we first started this channel, there were a lot of people who wanted to run their gums. But when they were pushed on things, they couldn't answer it. And it was because when I was answering questions, I was answering them with a full deck. These people didn't have the full deck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And that's the problem is, I'm gonna use my tissue paper. You get into this conversation where a lot of people have ideas written on tissue paper that they've never bothered to get wet to see if it still exists after they add a little water to it.
Yeah. They don't. And again, it's the people that don't know that always seem so ready to talk about shit because they did a Google search.
Yes.
I Googled this, so I must know what's going to be happening now. Ha ha ha. I am the Google master.
Yeah. Well, and that's where you and I have always talked. Like, you can learn a lot from doing some really good investigative research on the internet. You can really learn a lot. You can get really good guidance. But you and I will both always stand by, there are just certain activities and skills that I don't care how much online research you've done, I don't care how many YouTube videos you watch, you need to get in person to really learn how to do that safely and well. You know, once you start getting to suspension, if you cannot learn suspension fully just by sitting in front of a computer, and then one day decide you're going to start suspending people.
Yeah, exactly.
And the amount of master Google DOMs or bottoms even, is crazy.
Cray.
Yeah. Sarah, it's okay. It's okay to not know. No need to get insecure about it. It's okay, though. It's not okay to not learn, though. Completely agree. I think that's one of the. I don't know if it's always been this way, but when I first got into the lifestyle and I started going to in-person community events, it didn't feel as stigmatized to say you were new. Maybe that was my, perception bias there or something. But man, it feels like nobody wants to admit they're new. Everybody wants to come across like they're an authority on some part of it.
Mm-hmm. I remember this one young gentleman wrote in his post, "Well, I've been doing this 2.5 years." I was like, "Shut the fuck up." My God, 2.5. Oh, fuck, you have a half. What are you, a fucking toddler? I don't see, like, judging maybe a relationship, but like, you've been into kink 2 years, motherfucker. You haven't earned 3. Shut up. Shut up.
I'm like, so we just got out of referring to your kink journey in months, right? Or something like called past, like
3.
At what age do you stop actually using months to describe your child's age?
Generally 3. 2 to 3. I've never heard somebody, my toddler is 3.5 months. No, they're like these 3.
But that's just like when do you? Is it at 36 months old that you just start saying they're 3?
Yes.
18 months old. Can we just call them a year and a half? Why do you gotta tell me they're 18 months? I don't know. I don't have a kid, so.
You're not even worried about it. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. Some of these things get silly, get real silly real fast.
I gotta share this comment with you. Sarah's comment to your guy, to your person who had been doing it for 2.5 years, said, "LOL, 2 nights a month for 2.5 years." But also to that, like, telling me you've been in the lifestyle for anything less than 5 doesn't really tell me anything, because, like, a couple times a year for the last 5 years, or like you've just sat on your computer looking at certain content in this lifestyle for 5 years. Like, unless it's like, oh no, I've been at weekly events for 5 years. Like, okay, maybe now. Still doesn't actually mean anything, because you can have people who've been doing it for 20 years still not have any idea what consent is or how it works. So
Ain't that the truth?
I've seen it.
All right, there we go.
And the bottom line is, it's okay to only do it twice a month for 2.5 years. That's okay.
Sure.
But just own that I have the experience of twice a month for 2.5 years, you know, and accept that that's not very long in this community or lifestyle. That's not really that much experience.
And again, these are people who I always kind of feel like, you know, they're like, I'm primal. And then I'm like, it looks like two kittens fighting.
Well, and that's another one that, like, has shifted, because when I got into it.
Oh, you're doing the back in my day. Back in my day.
Well, but I like to see the difference between the back in your day and the back in my day. Like, it was like it wasn't little patty wrist slaps and chase around. Like, it was like, no, basically like knockdown, drag out wrestling, fighting match with teeth. Like,
someone call the hospital.
Yeah, like, where's the first aid kit? Because we will be needing this at the end.
Yep. Someone call 911.
Or, because I love our medical career Kingsters. Is Jim Bob here tonight? Because this scene's gonna need an EMT at the end of it. You know? Because I feel like that's a pretty circular Venn diagram of especially in emergency service medical and Kingsters. I was gonna say, so Sarah P commented, some of the very old Dutchman community is the worst. I agree with that. They have no interest in learning new things or growing, and they also don't know when it's time to retire, because unfortunately there is a point in time where either cognitive ability or physical ability have reached a point where it's no longer safe for you to be in community venues playing in the ways they're trying to play. Sarah P, back in my day, we didn't have XYZ. And then commented, never have shears. Are you meaning the old folks never have shears, or some people come in and never have shears?
And we're just waiting for that answer, right?
Yeah. So, while we're waiting for an answer, for you though, when Primal was first introduced to you, was it anything like what I described, or did it even have still its own thing back in your time?
I don't know if it would. I mean, it was definitely different than the things I see now. Well, I'll put it to you that way. The things I see now make me kind of almost giggle, because they take themselves so serious about this. Man, it was just meant to be like WWE hardcore match. Like, let's see who's gonna fuck who up. You know?
That was kind of my experience. It was like, basically, Kink Edition.
Yeah.
And the ones I witnessed did allow for biting and kicking and scratching as well.
I could see that. I could definitely see that. I don't. Sometimes these kids today and their kink. I don't know.
Yeah. Ugh. Sorry, I'm sitting on Sarah P's comment about the older folks.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not old, Sarah. I have been sitting here and I'm fine. I'm not in pain. Fuck you.
Well, not calling you old. So with some of my community experience has been due to older folks who are losing cognitive ability or are unwilling to learn new ways to look at consent or to look at safety. And it's very much well, I'm older, I've been here longer, so my way's the right way kind of energy. Which is why I'm just stuck on Sarah's comment about the very old Dutchian community is the worst.
Oh, damn it.
I mean, I remember I've had a conversation with somebody trying to explain, somebody like probably in their 60s and trying to explain the concept of coercion to them. And like it was just completely going over their head.
Which happens.
Yeah.
It does. We have to be mindful and understanding.
Yep.
Did she ever get back to us on her comment? Are we still waiting on it?
She commented levels to it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't really know, but that may just be my brain not comprehending.
Well, I do know that I have to use the bathroom, so I'm going to leave you in charge for a minute while I go use the bathroom. I wonder how people like the sideways screen. No one ever said anything.
We had one person in the middle of it that was like, "Why are you sideways?" So if anybody is wondering why he is sideways, he's just trying a different layout because at least initially he was also streaming live on YouTube. I don't remember what he said he got to, but basically he got to the point where now he's allowed to do YouTube live, which is it's a good thing because he can diversify where he's sharing content, and basically the more places he's sharing content, not only is it hopefully going to increase access to more people to get the info, but also if say one goes down, he still has the other.
Yeah.
Given the current culture in America, that seems very important to have backups.
Well, we're at 2 hours and 24 minutes. So
You're muted still.
I even left this open. We're at 2 hours and 24 minutes. I think we're gonna call it at this point. Because that's a pretty good time. So we're gonna go ahead and sign off.
Sounds good. Well, thanks to everybody for joining tonight. Thank you for all the comments. It's much appreciated because really these shows kind of run off your comments. We can get some banter going, but really we're here for your comments and to have a conversation with you. So thanks for joining. Have a good night and share with your friends who appreciate this content to get his count up to that 10K line.
And while we didn't hit 10K tonight, which we didn't really expect, I am excited to see what happens next when we get there. So I want to thank Alice and Sage for jumping on. I want to thank everyone for their comments and YouTube. Remember, and TikTok, that BDSM is not inherently sexual. It is mental. We think about it. We study it. We participate in it. We communicate. We go back and forth with our ideas with our partners. We talk about our playlists, our risk profiles, our our play profiles, aftercare, pre-care, all of it together to get to where we can ask for consent using diaper. Did I ask permission? Did I ask permission? Extensive representation, and we covered the new needs, expectations, and want. I want to thank you all for joining us, and stay kinky, my friends. Goodbye, YouTube.